What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ravi Wadden, and in today's video, I want to talk about whether or not the Rivian R1S is a good lease deal or not. Because when you go to Rivian's website and you click on R1S, it says that there are available configurations to lease starting at just $659 a month. So if you're in the market for a Rivian R1S, I think you'll get a lot of value from this video. What we'll do is we'll go to the Rivian website and we'll kind of spec out one of these R1Ss and we'll kind of study the lease in detail. We'll talk about the mileage, we'll talk about all the taxes and fees and what to expect, and we'll just get into all the little nitty-gritty details, And then in the second part of this video, what we'll talk about is whether or not this Rivian R1S is a good lease deal in terms of value, running my 1.25% rule of leasing on it. And then in the third part of this video, what we'll do is we'll talk about why, in my opinion at least, leasing this Rivian R1S makes more sense than financing or purchasing this Rivian R1S outright, mainly due to the $7,500 EV tax credit and depreciation. So if that sounds good to you, please be sure to like this video and please be sure to follow or subscribe. But with that, let's go ahead and jump into the computer behind me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on the Rivian website. We're looking at the R1S, and as you can see, it says now leasing available configurations starting at just $649 a month. So let's go ahead and hit shop, and that will take us to this page. And if we scroll down, you'll see that we have a bunch of different lease deals. Now, what I'm going to do is actually, let's go ahead and study like the cheapest lease deal that they have on an R1S. So let's go by lowest lease. And if we scroll down, it looks like this 2025 R1S Adventure Dual Standard, which has an MSRP of $75,900, has the lowest monthly lease payment at $690 a month. Now this one has 258 miles of range. It comes with 20-inch all-season tires, and it's Black Mountain. Is that the Black Mountain? Is that that can't be the exterior color, but maybe that's the interior color. Anyways, let's go ahead and click on the car. You can see that additional information is a 4.5 second 0 to 60 time. You have 610 foot-pounds of torque and 533 horsepower. But look what, you guys aren't here to look at the specifications of this car. We actually want to look at the lease deal that this car has. So let's go ahead and click on the calculator button, at the top of the page. And you have two options here. You can loan, price out a loan or a finance, at 72 months, or you can click on this lease button here. Now I'm in Seattle, so my registration state is Washington. I'm not sure why they ask that, because the option to select the state that you live in, but you see that the correlated taxes, fees, and registration are not included. As you can see here, it says excluding taxes and fees. Well, anyways, you can do a 36-month lease for $690 a month. You can also do a 24-month lease, and you'll see that the payment does adjust to $650 a month. So let's go back to 36 months, and the annual mileage defaults to 10,000 miles a year. And as you can see here, you can do 12 or 15,000 miles a year if you need it. Now, my suggestion for those of you shopping for this car is if you drive 12,000 miles a year, it's better to just get 12,000 miles a year up front or 15,000 miles a year up front, rather than getting a 10,000 mile a year lease and then paying the excess mileage penalty, because the excess mileage penalty will be more expensive than just getting 12,000 or 15,000 miles a year up front. And as you can see here, if we look in the fine print, you'll see that at the end of lease charge includes excess vehicle wear and 30 cents a mile for excess mileage. And 30 cents a mile is definitely on the higher side. So that's a little key point there that could probably save a lot of you some money. And based on an excellent credit score, and if your credit score isn't 740 or above, you can click that, and that will adjust the money factor or the interest rate. And it's based on a down payment of $7,000. Now, my recommendation to you is to put the least amount of money down as possible, but we'll just leave this to the default $7,000 for purposes of this video, because I don't want to make it more confusing than leasing already is for many of you. Now, as you can see here, it says that the down payment is $7,000. It's included an acquisition fee of $895, and then you have first month's payment of $690. So you have a total estimated due at signing of $8,585. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at least in the state of Washington, to register this car for a year, which you'll need to do when you buy this car, you're looking at least $1,000 because the MSRP on this car is $75,900. So I would say $1,000, give or take. And then you're going to have to pay taxes on the rebates. So this lease does include the lease credit. As you can see here, you have the $7,500 EV lease credit. You're going to have to pay taxes on that. So that's about $750. And let's just go ahead and account for any other maybe dealer fees or documentation. So let's just say an additional $2,000 that's going to be due at signing on top of this $8,585. So you're looking at about $10,585. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the fine print here. As you can see, it says the $7,000 capitalized cost reduction includes a $1,000 deposit. It includes your first month's payment. It includes $895 acquisition fee. Additional fees that are due at signing include tax, title, license, registration, and documentation fees. And that's, where I added in that additional $2,000. And another thing that I wanted to see if it was in the fine print was whether Rivian has a buyout offer at the end of the lease deal. But anyways, to my knowledge, you can buy this lease. Like, it does have a buyout option at the end of the lease term, so that is important. And that's another reason that I really do recommend leasing this Rivian, and that really has to do with the depreciation. But unlike Tesla, which you cannot buy at the end of the lease, you have to turn it in. Rivian does have a buyout option. It doesn't list it here on the website, and I wish it did, but that is something that you should know. And the cool thing with a buyout option is that if at the end of the lease term, let's just say, just for example's sake, let's say the buyout is $40,000 on this Rivian at the end of 3 years. Well, let's say that Rivians hold their value extremely well, and this particular car that you lease today in 3 years' time, the value is about $45,000. Well, that means you have $5,000 in equity. So what you can do is either realize that equity in multiple different ways. Like, you can trade in the car and take that $5,000 and use it as a down payment. You can maybe sell the car before the lease ends and pocket that $5,000. Or you can buy that car. You will have to pay sales tax, so that's something you should factor in. But you can buy that car, maybe keep it, and maybe drive it around for another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or however long you would like to. But the point is that it does have a buyout option, so it does let you exercise positive equity should you have any at the end of the lease term. But now in this part of the video, let's go ahead and run my 1.25% rule of leasing. Now, with my 1.25% rule of leasing, anytime you get a number above 1.5%, that's a lease deal that I typically stay away from. If you get a number under 1.5%, that's a good lease deal. If you get a number under 1.25%, that's a great lease deal. And if you get a number under 1%, that's an amazing lease deal. And there really isn't that many sub 1% lease deals. I mean, if I could just think off the top of my head, probably the BMW iX, you've got cars like the Subaru Solterra, the Toyota BZ4X. A lot of cases you have like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6. So there are some sub 1% lease deals out there, but this isn't a 1% lease, sub 1% lease deal. But let's go ahead and run the numbers and see what it is. So we'll take the $8,585 that's due at signing, 8,585, and then we'll just add the $2,000 just to account for taxes and registration fees and things like that, and you get $10,585. Now what we'll do is we'll subtract the monthly payment of $690 from this amount, since that's included in the due at signing amount, and you get $9,895. Now what we'll do is divide this total, due at signing amount by 36, since this is a 36-month lease, and that breaks up that due at signing amount into 36 equal parts, and you get $274.86. Now what I'm going to do is add the monthly payment of $690 back in, and you get a pre-tax monthly payment with $0 down. So making it, essentially what we're doing is making this a sign and drive lease, where you just walk into the dealership and you pay nothing and you walk away with the car. you get a monthly payment of $964. Now, this does not include sales tax. So where I live in Seattle, sales tax is roughly 10%. So I'll multiply this by 1.1 to account for 10% sales tax, and that gives me an effective monthly payment of $1,061. And when I say effective monthly payment, this means that this would be my monthly payment assuming I don't pay anything at the time of signing, and this includes my registration fees, includes my dealer fees, documentation fees, all taxes that I owe and rebates, and including sales tax on the payment. So you're looking at an effective monthly payment of $1,061. And if I divide this by this vehicle's MSRP, which is kind of grayed out, but it's up here, $75,900, 75900. Oh, it's an extra zero. Let's remove that. You get 0.014. Now I will multiply this by 100 to convert it into a percentage and move the decimal point over 2 spots, and I get 1.39%. So ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, under 1.5% is a good lease deal, under 1.25% is a great lease deal, and under 1% is an amazing lease deal. And this Rivian comes in at 1.39%. So this is a good lease deal. And if it were me, this is a car, or an SUV rather, that I personally would definitely lease. Now, let's actually go ahead and look at the what the finance payments would be on this SUV if you put, approximately the same amount of money down, assuming $10,000 down. So if we look at the loan payments here, and we do a 72-month loan at 6.99% and a down payment of $10,000, you're looking at a monthly payment of $1,259 versus $1,061, I believe, is what it was when we ran the effective monthly payment. Excuse me, I'm just going to have to do it again really quick. So it was the lease payment. Get the calculator back out. This is actually beneficial for you guys watching as well, because we can just do it again. So $10,585 minus $690 divided by 36 plus $690 times 1.1 to account for sales tax. Yeah, $1,061 is the effective monthly payment when you lease this car. This is assuming 10,000 miles. And if you to finance this car, your monthly payment is $1,259. So about $200 more. Now, even if you did, a 12,000 mile a year lease or a 15,000 mile a year lease, you're still going to be under this $1,259 a month. And that's why, in my opinion, it makes sense to lease this car. And even if you wanted to keep this car long term, I think it makes more sense to lease this car up front, because you do get the $7,500 EV tax credit. And then you can decide, based on what happens in the market, if these cars hold their value better than expected, you can decide whether to buy your lease and keep it long term. So in a nutshell, if I were shopping for a Rivian R1S, particularly this trim, I would definitely lease it. You get the $7,500 EV tax credit. And, at 1.39%, it's not a bad lease deal, right? You're under 1.5%, which I definitely like to see. And that's including registration, all your fees, all your taxes. And then with the lease, you also get downside protection from depreciation, right? So I think right now with what's happening with electric vehicles is that they're not holding their value extremely well. So the last thing that I would want to do if I were in the market for a Rivian R1S is buy this car, right? Either outright using cash or financing this car. And then 3 years later, I need a different car for a variety of different reasons, right? Some people you need different cars because of lifestyle changes, budgetary constraints, whatever it is. And then you find out that you're $15,000, $20,000 in negative equity. So I think at least with leasing this car, it's a good lease deal, and you know what your downside risk is going to be. You know what your monthly payment is going to be. And then whether Rivian comes out with new models, and the battery packs are changing all the time, the components in these batteries are changing all the time, the ranges are improving. So I think leasing is the way to go, at least in my opinion. But I would love to hear your thoughts, whether you would lease or finance this particular Rivian R1S. So if you guys have any other questions about leasing, or if there's a particular car that you want me to do a video like this on, please let me know in the comment section below. But with that, I'm going to call it a video. Thank you all for watching. Financial knowledge is power. Please like and follow for more.